Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and today we're here for our mock draft 4.0 for your Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're doing this following the first wave of free agency, got some moves as well in the second wave with Joey Slye, the kicker, being signed by Jacksonville, and then Trevis Gibson, former Chicago Bear, played for the Titans last year, also being signed. Got a lot of other players as well, of course, from the first wave, but we've got a really good idea now of what this team's going to need, maybe some players they look at, and what are ultimately the rankings for how we see these needs and what players are we looking at? Who are we trading up for? Who are we staying put for? Trying to explore that all. And we also get a good idea as well of like what teams might be suitors. I think the Jets would be a great example of a new one. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to jump into needs first. I usually start this off by talking about needs, so you guys get an idea of how I assess the roster right now. But the way we draft, we try not to focus mainly on needs. We try to focus on best player available, factoring in needs just a little bit. So let's jump into it. I've got two types of needs to talk about. One is immediate needs, and the other is near future needs. So immediate needs are positions where I think we could use a starter this year, or there's a hole basically that I think needs to be filled for 2024. Near future needs are positions where I think we could need it, maybe if there's an injury, but more importantly, we will probably need it in 2025, and it'd be best to be ready for that season. Because that's the way we want to be as a franchise. We want to be able to draft ahead of time, be ready for when players may depart, or when players get too expensive. Be proactive. Now, the way this team has been built, it's going to be hard to do that, right? Because last year, didn't get a whole lot of value in the draft. Drafted a lot of players that their ceiling was never going to be a starter. And I don't get why we did that, but it happened, and that's just the reality. But we're going to do our best, right? Get the best players, get guys that we can see having an impact at some point, whether the first year or not, but just the best players overall. So we're focusing on the long term instead of just this year. So I've got two immediate needs. I originally had three. I'm going to knock one down the list. But the top one is wide receiver one. Huge need for the Jaguars. Right now, I think you look at this team without Calvin Ridley, or insert your wide receiver one. Could be Brandon Ayuk, could be, Rome Odunze. Christian Kirk as a wide receiver one, I don't think is ideal. I think he can do it, but it's not great, right? Like, you'd ideally want him to be a very good wide receiver too. I don't want him to have to be the guy who is getting every single target in a game, or I'm going to go, throw it up to on the final drive. Like, I think he offers a ton. I just don't think he's that kind of role, right? And that's fine. He's a great player. And he'll be here for a long time, hopefully. But he's ideally a wide receiver too. A very good one. Gabe Davis. You can argue he's a wide receiver too. But I think his ceiling is as a high wide receiver too. I don't think it's a wide receiver one. And right now, with the inconsistent production, he might be that third guy ideally. I think that's the best role for him right now, to be able to get started here and get some production and get some attention taken off of him. I think in Buffalo, he's the second guy clearly there. And in that role, he didn't get the ball a ton. He got it a ton every other game, but there were games where he just didn't get it at all. So I would like to see him as three. And Zay Jones, I don't know what he is right now. I really don't. I could see him being fine this year and being worth it, but that's the player you got to upgrade at, right? You're not going to keep him, pay him $8 million to be a backup. It just doesn't make sense, because you need a wide receiver one. You got to consider that, because you're knocking these players down a peg. They're all of a sudden in a much better fit for the Jaguars. So wide receiver one's top of the list. The second one is right tackle, because right now we do not know what's going to happen with Cam Robinson. I imagine he stays, but I imagine he takes a pay cut. I would guess there's conversations around that. Trent Baalke kind of alluded to it at his press conference at the Combine, or when he was asked about Cam Robinson, he did say, yeah, he's under contract. I don't know why there's ambiguity about that, but he followed it up by saying that they're in negotiations with a lot of players right now, or at that moment, right? A few weeks ago. He says that for a reason. He's not just randomly saying that. about some other topic. I think they're considering probably changing the contract. Probably taking a bit of a pay cut, trying to push money down the road. That is realistically something that they're looking at. So I think that's probably what's going to happen with Cam Robinson. I think he takes a pay cut, but there's a question mark by this because if that's not sorted by after the draft, before the draft, well, why would you not pick a guy if he's there? Like, if your best guy on the board is a tackle, take him. There's no reason not to. Then go trade Cam. The team will take him. He's a good tackle. And you're set. Like, that's the way I would approach it. So there's a question mark by this one right now. But those are the immediate needs. The near future ones, I have cornerback as the top one. Both guys have some injury concerns, some durability concerns. That is Tyson Campbell and Ronald Darby. Now, I'm mainly talking about boundary corners. I want to make that clear because I think Darnell Savage or possibly Antonio Johnson's playing in the nickel this year. I don't think you need a guy there. So, outside cornerback. Injuries are a potential concern. I think as well, Tyson Campbell, technically we don't know if he's going to be here. I think he should be after 2024. I think he should be extended, but he didn't play as well last year. We have not seen him in the system either, so it might be a little risky to extend him right now, but it might also be worth it. It's kind of the Josh Allen argument, except not as big of a contract, right? So Tyson Campbell, we technically don't know the future of, but for Ronald Darby, not a player who's on the field all the time, and I think you want to get that guy of the future either this year or next year. So I'm definitely considering that for the Jaguars. So cornerback's top of the list. I also have right guard. It's pretty clear Brandon Scherff has 1 year left on this team. That's probably all there is going to be. He took a pay cut. Usually players do not return after taking a pay cut. They come back for that 1 year. They go somewhere else. And their team will pay him pretty well. So that's probably what's going to happen. He's also 33. I don't think you want to keep him after that contract. I don't think that's smart. I think you need to find your guys of the future and start saving some money, right? Because you got to prepare for the Trevor Lawrence contract. You got to prepare for a lot of other contracts coming up. Because you're going to have this 2021 draft class. Then all of a sudden, 2022's here. You're going to have Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd and all these guys. So that's how I look at it. Outside linebacker and defensive end, I think are also positions you can consider adding it. I had outside linebacker originally as an immediate need. However, I don't think it is necessarily in that category now with Travis Gibson getting added. I think they have the rotational guys, but I'm definitely considering upgrading that position. I think it would be worth it if you have a really good player available to play there. Defensive line's one of those spots like, whatever part of it you're talking about, interior, stand up, or, playing on the edge, any of that. Like, if you can load it up, you're not going to regret it. The Jaguars did that when they drafted Josh Allen. We don't complain about that now because we got Josh Allen on our team. We needed offense more at that point. We made the right pick, though, because we took the best player, and he was useful to us very quickly in his career. So, outside linebacker and defensive end are on the board for us. Linebacker and center are the final ones. Linebacker, I look at it like this. As much as we can say, like, there's tons of draft capital invested, tons of money invested. One guy, to me, is clearly a starter after this year, and that's Devin Lloyd. It's the only one. And you could even try to argue that if you want, but I think he is. Foye Oluokun, this is his final year on the contract. I don't know if they extend him. We don't know how he fits in the scheme. We got to see how they value him. We heard reports that the Jaguars were interested in Patrick Queen. Why do you think that is? They might be looking for someone else there. That's possible. So maybe after this year, they move on from him. You talk about Chad Muma. We don't know what he is right now. I think he could be something. I think he could be a good starter. He has not had the snaps to prove that. So we got to see there. And Ventrell Miller was drafted for special teams. We were told that when he was drafted. It was crazy that was the case, but that's what we were told. So linebacker, you got one guy you know for sure is a starter next year. So may look dumb this year, but it'll look smart, I think, after the season, especially if you can save money on Foye Oluokun. Maybe you trade him if you draft an Edgerrin Cooper. Like, these are all possibilities. Not saying it happens, but just things to think about because you got to get ready with your cap space. And then center is the final one. Mitch Morse has part of his second year guaranteed, but maybe the Jaguars could trade off of him for like a 7th round pick or just something minute and avoid that cap hit. Just pay out the prorated bonus. But he's a starter this year for sure. You could get another guy to go in there. Morse is an older player. I'm not against the idea of drafting a really good center if it's there. I would even consider Zach Frazier in the 2nd round because to me, he's a late 1st round prospect. That's a good deal. But he does probably have to be clear and above the best player for me to get picked in this draft. So those are our needs. Now let's jump into it. I'm going to talk really quick about players we might move up for. Now, you got 4 guys up here, or actually 5 we're probably not going to talk about because Joe Walt, he should be gone way too early. And I think Anton Harrison should be the left tackle of the future. Anyway, Malik Neighbors should be gone really early as well. Quarterbacks you're not looking at. Marvin Harrison Jr., I've had some discourse on Twitter, if you follow me. I will be probably recording a video close to the draft where I talk about this because I have a personal opinion on it, and I don't want to force that into these because I'm trying to be semi-realistic of what could happen maybe, but also sprinkling in my personal thoughts on the class. But I will upload a video talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. close to the draft and what I would do because it does involve Marvin Harrison Jr. So, spoiler alert there. But Rome Odunze, Dallas Turner, Terry and Arnold. 3 players I'd trade up for. Odunze, damn good receiver, a guy who can really do it all, but mainly is just a phenomenal contested catch guy down the field. We need that so bad on this offense. I know we got Gabe Davis, but getting another guy who can also do all the other things, huge need for the Jaguars. He would be your wide receiver 1. And, my comp, Cortland Sutton. Damn good receiver, man. And he'll have more production than Sutton. Dallas Turner, you can say, it's not a need, but I think adding Dallas Turner to this defensive line, you can get him in there, and you will have, potentially the best defensive line in the league this next year. I think it could be that good. So if Dallas Turner is falling down the board, I'm going to consider it. So he's on my board for the first pick for us. Terry and Arnold is the realistic one. I think he should go much earlier than our pick. I don't know if that's the case, though. He's a player I would trade up for in this draft. Now, I don't know if I'll do it on this. We'll see. The only reason why is because as much as I like him, Quinyon Mitchell's really close for me. I know he's a couple spots below, but it's a close race between those guys. And I think Mitchell would be great for this team as well. Really good fit. And, you might just wait until you see a cornerback go off the board to move up. So, just want to give you a sneak peek there. We're going to go probably to pick 10. It's a little rich for me to move up to pick 9 with the Chicago Bears. So, we'll see if we can get something done at 10 if there is an option. You see the receivers are off the board. So, Rome Odunze's gone. I don't know if I'd pay this much for him. I kind of the opinion that, if we're going to move up for a receiver, I just move up for the best one, even if it's more expensive. Just my opinion. We'll talk about that later, right? But you got him off the board. You got Dallas Turner off the board. You got all your other players off the board. Now, really, at this point, you're looking at Terry and Arnold, Fuaga, Mitchell, and maybe even Jared Verse as options. So we'll play this out a few picks. So we get to pick 14. I think this is a really good spot to trade up. So before that, I don't know what the hell the Vikings are doing. I'm just going to be real. I don't know why they're picking Brock Bowers, but you do you. He should be off the board by this point. But you get Verse off, you get Fuaga off. Mitchell's still here, and Arnold's still here. I have Arnold above him, but this is where I would trade up. Right now, the Colts have not got a L'Jarius Sneed trade done. I don't know if it happens at this point. They clearly are considering getting a cornerback. if they have not moved up, and it's pick 14 and all the guys are on the board, this is the perfect spot to do it. Because last year, you had the Patriots trade back from 14 to 17 with the Steelers. I think they gave up 120 to move up that far, and they ended up getting their guy. They hopped over the Jets, who I think picked at 15 or 16, and ended up having to get Will McDonald instead of Broderick Jones, who they really needed on that team. So this is a perfect scenario because you do your pick swap, but we have New Orleans' pick this year. They could get their pick back. It's about the same value. It's slightly more. And based off what happened last year, I think they'd accept that to get their selection back, move back a few spots, and get their guy at 17. So that's what we're going to offer here. Gets accepted. And we're going to make Terry and Arnold a Jacksonville Jaguar here. Some of you guys are kind of tired of this if you follow me on Twitter, but it's just my opinion. I think Terry and Arnold's one of the best players in this class. I've seen people who have him at like 3rd overall as a prospect. I'm not there, but I just can't imagine a scenario where you pick Terry and Arnold and you're disappointed. Like, I think he comes in, becomes one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. You know, I don't know if he's the best. I doubt that. But he is just such a damn good man coverage cornerback. Great fluidity. Just a hell of a competitor. And off the field as well. Phenomenal person. I'm a huge fan of him personally. And by the way, he's from Tallahassee. You know, Tallahassee isn't exactly like a place I'd think of an NFL team being home to too much, but Jacksonville would be that team. So you keep him close to home, and you bring him down to Duval, and you get a hell of a player, and you jump the Colts for him. We'll probably pick Quinyon Mitchell, realistically. I don't know if they will here. But Terry and Arnold, we're going to add him to the defense. Now, I'm going to run this out to pick 33. We're just going to evaluate where things are. I'll actually go to 30. Okay. We got A.D. Mitchell here. Still on the board. I want to look at this. Is there a trade we can swing to get this done? Okay. We're going to do it here. We're going to full send. So, I know it's a big jump. But we need a wide receiver 1. And I think A.D. Mitchell can be that. I think there's a little bit of risk involved. But I think A.D. Mitchell's going to be a hell of a player. In this scenario, we'll probably flip. We'll flip a lot of picks here for this. Might be too many for some people. Here's some things to keep in mind. I would imagine we get a Calvin Ridley comp pick next year. We should get an extra 3rd. Yeah, we lose the 4th. Ultimately, we have more value in our picks than the average team still. You lose your 3rd rounder this year, which that's something, you know, and you obviously trade up in the 4th. We're consolidating picks pretty heavily at this point. But to me, that's okay because of the players that you're getting. You're getting really damn good players at big positions of need. And then 212 really isn't going to move the needle for me. It just makes it a little more realistic because I usually like to have these, like, say it will likely be accepted because those are the ones that are pretty close to fair. But, you know, San Francisco, I think they could consider this trade. That's what we'll swing here. Maybe it's a little more expensive, but we're going to make this happen. A.D. Mitchell is my top player on the board by far at this point. I have him. So you got Terry and Arnold at 8. Mitchell, for me, is a 16. He might get a little bit higher when I re-rank this because I'll probably go back through and change things. But man, if he's playing at full strength, like going at every play, not taking plays off, this guy can be one of the best receivers in this class. And he should be one of the best receivers in this class, realistically. But to get him in Jacksonville would be huge for this team. Like I said earlier, I would prefer if we get a receiver, you get one of the best. But you get Terry and Arnold here, and you have an opportunity to move up for A.D. Mitchell. You move up into the 1st, you get that 5th-year option, and you bring him down to Jacksonville. And now you got a damn good receiving core. You got a damn good secondary. You feel good about the trenches as well. And you're feeling pretty good, even though you got 3 picks left here. We're obviously consolidating a lot. We lose a 4th next year as well. To me, it's still worth it. So we'll see what comes up at 114. We're not going to trade up at this point. We might actually consider trading back unless there's a really good value there. But that's kind of how we'll approach it, because there might be some players we'd like to add, on day 3 here. So let's see what we got. Might have Javon Baker. Yeah, he's on the board still. Obviously, we just drafted a receiver. That's going to be a factor. Christian Jones is one I'm a huge fan of on day 3. If he's there, I don't think he should be. I would consider him as early as that 96th overall pick. You got Cooper Beebe as well. Cam Hart, if you didn't add Terry and Arnold, makes a ton of sense. And then Javon Baker, I know we just added a receiver, but you've seen injuries, and we need young guys on this team. I would not be against the idea of adding Javon Baker, even in this scenario. But we're going to see what our trade offers are. So we'll move back with the Broncos. Try to swing for maybe another pick. See what that would even be. They might not have anything that great. Let's look at Pittsburgh, perhaps. Let's do 195. I got a player in mind for that pick. And we'll see what falls here. So we lose Javon Baker. That's all right. We got a receiver. And Leonard Taylor goes off. Cam Hart goes off. Not guys I'm super interested in. Still got Christian Jones here. Gonna pick him up. It's the right tackle. Think you can move on from Cam Robinson in this situation, realistically. I look at Christian Jones as a really good swing tackle, but you can give him that shot to prove he's the starter that first year. So, very much like the idea of bringing him into Jacksonville. He'll be one of my favorite guys to talk about. Now, at this pick, it's a pretty easy choice for me. It's a player I'm a huge fan of who's still on the board here. I don't know if he's the best fit for Jacksonville, but I'm going to make it work. That's Zach Zinner. We need that right guard of the future. I think Zach Zinner can be that, especially if you give him a year to sit. He has some really good film overall. There are some lapses, though. I mean, there's plays where he gets pancaked once in a while that concern me a little bit. But, man, like you're talking about 5th round here, you're going to easily make this selection. So, surprisingly, this is the first pick where we haven't moved around. But, I mean, personally, like, if I was a GM, I'd be trading a lot. And you see Jacksonville do that as well. They traded their 1st round pick last year. They did it twice. Traded their 2nd rounder. And they tried to move around on day 3 a bit as well. So, not that shocking. Now, we get here to our selection we add from Pittsburgh. This is going to be Frank Gore Jr. for me. I know we got Dearness Johnson on the team. You have him battle it out a little bit. Maybe Frank Gore Jr. is the 3rd guy there. Maybe you carry 4 guys. We'll see what happens. I do really like him. I think he could be a good back to have in your committee of players. And I'll just be honest, too. Like, I love the idea of getting Frank Gore Jr. after everything Frank Gore did for the Jaguars. There's going to be bias there. But at this point, like 195, it's not a ton of players I see as starters, but I could see Frank Gore Jr. being a fun player to come in, maybe being able to take on some reps if players are struggling with injuries. Just a good addition to your team at this point. Then we'll have one more selection left. We'll see what's there. Usually, I've talked a lot about kicker. I've talked about Will Reichard usually, or sometimes it might be Harrison Mevis. Usually I'm with Reichard. I have no idea how to evaluate kickers, if I'm being honest. But I don't know if that's the case this time. We're going to see what else is here. I think I see my guy for this pick. But realistically, like, I don't think they pick a kicker now, even though I think they'll need one. Because I think Joey Sly is going to earn enough to where he's probably going to be a shoo-in to start. My choices here would be either Dallas Gant or Tanner McLaughlin. I think you're pretty loaded at linebacker this year. Obviously, like I said, there could be some changes in the future. But Tanner McLaughlin, Luke Farrell might be walking. This could be a really good tight end 3. Jacksonville likes to use a lot of 2 tight end sets. You have an injury, McLaughlin could get used, and he's a player that I haven't watched a ton of film on, but there's a lot of hype around him as maybe kind of a sneaky guy in this class that has all the skills to possibly be a really good player at the next level. So we're going to get Doug Peterson and their tight end prospect to work with. It's an easy choice for me. So I'm going to just turbo this to the end. We don't got any more picks. And we'll evaluate what we got here. Bit different, right? Probably didn't expect us to have 2 first-round picks, but look, I'll be honest. Like, if A.D. Mitchell is falling down the board and we didn't pick him with our first pick, if we didn't get a wide receiver, like, I'm willing to move up and trade the picks you got to give up to get up there. Now, maybe you don't want to give up 4 picks. Maybe you want to give up something a little more important. You know, maybe it's a 3rd next year and you don't give up the 6th. Personally, I would do this as I did it, but you know, I think this is a move that's worth it. You get a really good receiver, get someone who's reminiscent of T. Higgins in the way they play as well. Phenomenal route runner, too. Incredible hands, like just a really good player to add to this group that's going to have a different skill set, but still be able to stretch the field vertically. Great speed as well. I think Christian Jones, really good right tackle, I think. He's got phenomenal size as well. I don't know if he'll be the complete starter at the end of the day, but at least he's going to be your Walker Little replacement, a really good swing guy. I didn't even talk about Terry and Arnold. Arnold, like right off the bat, I think he's your starter outside. He can kick him into the slot as well, but he's got a hell of a mentor in Darby, and just a perfect fit for this defense. Finally get him in one of these. I haven't picked him yet somehow, but Terry and Arnold, like one of my favorite scenarios in the first round. And if he's here at 14, I'm moving up. Just my opinion. After that, Zach Zinner, you need a right guard of the future. I think he's a good one. He's a solid one. Suffered an injury late in the season. Probably push him down the board. It's great news if you need him, and we're going to take advantage of that here. Frank Gore Jr., just adding another running back to this group. I think he could be a guy who sticks around here throughout that rookie contract, be a solid contributor, and, you know, got to thank Frank Gore for what he did for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then finally, Tanner McLaughlin, good tight end prospect. A lot to work with there. You're getting him late in the draft. A lot of upside on what he could be for the Jaguars. Would love that pick at this point. So that's what we got here. Let me know what you think, what you would do as well. Who's your favorite prospect at this point? You know, we're at the point now, we know the needs. We know what direction they could be going. It's a lot more limited now than it was before. At this point, I think for a lot of you guys, you probably got your favorites. I hear A.D. Mitchell a lot, and I hear maybe Quinyon Mitchell too, Romo Dunze, names like that. But just let me know, like, who is your favorite guy in this class? What would you do? Would you trade up, trade down, all that stuff? Would love to hear it. Love hearing all your thoughts. But thank you guys for joining me today. Appreciate you being here. And finally, go Jags.